Mr. Bryza, you and I had an opportunity to discuss some of these things, and I just, on the record, want to pursue some of them. I'm sure you know that I have introduced Senate Resolution 316, which calls on the administration to acknowledge the Armenian genocide. It is something I believe very passionately in. I believe we cannot move forward unless we recognize history and historical facts, and that allows us to move forward. During the whole issue of the Armenian genocide, former Ambassador John Evans was fired for using the words Armenian genocide. During that period of time, you were the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. What role, if any, did you play in the firing of Ambassador Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Senator, also for the honor of our discussion yesterday. I played absolutely no role in the firing of Ambassador Evans. I was not consulted, and I learned of the fact ex post facto.
So you had no conversations with anyone in the State Department, you offered no opinions, you were not part of the process whatsoever?
That is correct. As hard as it is to believe, I was not part of the process whatsoever.
All right. Let me ask you this. I heard your response to Senator Boxer with reference to the desecration of the 7th century Armenian cemetery in the Zhufa region of Azerbaijan, a World Heritage treasure. And yesterday you told me that you did respond, but publicly you didn't respond for 3 months until 3 months after the incidents. Is that true?
Mr. Senator, I recall responding immediately, as I said to Senator Boxer, to the government of Azerbaijan.
But in a public context?
In a public context, my foggy recollection is that I had talked about it often. I don't have any citations here. So there is this one that has been cited in March. Reason why I didn't more vigorously respond on the day when I learned of it and in the immediate days thereafter was because, again, reports were just coming in. The video footage is very foggy, it's grainy, it's difficult to see what happened. So in a spirit of professionalism and fairness, it was important to gather information. I asked our embassy to investigate what had happened. And as that information came in and it became clear to me what had happened, then absolutely I publicly issued that condemnation.
Well, I have here that on March 8th of 2006, 3 months after the incident, and only in response to questions from reporters during a press conference in Yerevan, you described the destruction as a tragedy, noting that it's awful what happened in Zhufa. But then that was the end of it. Could you provide the committee whether or not you made any public statements before then?
Absolutely, we could, yeah. Yes.
Let me ask you, on June 18th of this year, without provocation, Azerbaijan, in one of the worst ceasefire violations in years, attacked the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, resulting in the death of 5 soldiers. Now, Azerbaijan has repeatedly threatened to destabilize the region by attacking Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh, with President Aliyev insisting that the, quote, war is not over, and that, quote, this is only the first stage of the war is over, end quote, while his defense minister threatens that war is inevitable. Now, just a month after Azerbaijan attacked Nagorno-Karabakh in the worst ceasefire violation, our colleague on the House side, Chris Smith, during an April 18th hearing of 2008, questioned you about potential consequences if Azerbaijan attacked Nagorno-Karabakh. You didn't want to talk about consequences. You talked in broad terms. Well, we have had the consequences of an attack. We have language which is not the language of peace, reconciliation, and or stability in the region. It is a language of war. Do you understand why people are concerned that you have a pro-Azerbaijani view in a way that will not sufficiently, when appropriate, pressure the Azerbaijani government not to be seeking to attack Nagorno-Karabakh, not to be seeking to destabilize the region, not to create war? I've heard your comments that, there is no military solution. But by the same token, sometimes I think we need to be stronger than that, even with our friends. So can you respond to that?
Absolutely, Senator, and I couldn't agree with you more in raising these concerns. And in response to your question, I absolutely do understand why people would worry in this way. I can say that the OSCE Minsk Group co-chairs, when I was a member, and currently as well, make very clear, publicly and privately, at the highest levels of Azerbaijan's government, that those threats of war have no place. And it's time to prepare the populations of the region, of Azerbaijan, of Armenia, for peace, for a peaceful settlement process. That's the whole point of the Minsk Group endeavor. You mentioned my personal relationships with officials in Azerbaijan. Well, I have the same relationships in Armenia, and the same relationships as well with the de facto authorities in Nagorno-Karabakh. And I found that the only way to catalyze progress on these settlements and to elicit the often high-risk decisions required to reach compromises is to be able to build that trust through those personal relationships. So I assure you, I have used that trust in both Armenia and in Azerbaijan to deliver tough messages when necessary and to deliver positive ones when necessary. I've been criticized by press and senior officials in both countries. In the case of Azerbaijan, after I stated back in May of 2009, that following a meeting between the presidents of Armenia and Azerbaijan, that the president of Armenia had behaved in a constructive way, I was sharply criticized by the president of Azerbaijan's senior foreign policy advisor. So being criticized or being thought of as being closer to one side or the other is part of the game, and I have to just remain always objective and deliver the tough messages when necessary, especially on the inadmissibility of threats to use force. If there's going to be a settlement of Nagorno-Karabakh, which I believe there will be, it must be based on 3 Helsinki Final Act principles: the non-use of force and the non-threat of force, the territorial integrity of states, and the equal rights and self-determination of peoples. Thank you.
Madam Chair, my time is expired. I have additional questions if you have a second round. So.
I expect we will have a second round, Senator Menendez.